Hello students, and welcome to our engine failure approach and landing execution video. Before we jump into the cockpit, let's quickly discuss the objective of this maneuver and some key factors that we'll be focusing on. The objective of this maneuver is to develop the skills necessary to maintain positive control of the airplane following an in-flight engine failure, and to continue to execute a safe approach and landing, bringing the airplane back around and landing it safely with one engine. In this maneuver execution video, we will not be covering detailed aerodynamics, maneuver diagrams, common student errors, or the ACA standards. This video is to simply explain and demonstrate the execution of the maneuver and will vary based on the aircraft you are flying, obviously. To see all the additional details we just mentioned and to study this lesson's full-length presentation, podcast, diagrams, flashcards, lesson quiz, and a whole bunch more, look up the engine failure landing lesson on our website at wificfi.com. Lastly, before we jump into the cockpit, there's a couple key factors that we need to cover regarding this maneuver. First and foremost, if you have not watched our engine failure after liftoff lesson, go back and watch that lesson prior to watching the rest of this lesson here. The reason for that is because this is an extension of that lesson. In other words, in that previous lesson, the engine failure after liftoff is when we experienced the engine failure and we went through the maintaining positive control of the airplane, pitch attitude, airspeed, mixture prop, throttle forward. We went through all the memorization items. We went through the fixing or feathering. We went through the feathering checklist. We got the engine feathered and we got the airplane turned around to come back and land. So we're continuing on at that point where that video ended. That's where it ended, after we got the engine feathered and we're coming back to land, and then we cut that video off and now we're continuing it here in this video. So it's very important. There's a whole lot of important things in that video. Go watch that one first. Make sure you understand everything in that video before you continue on with this one, because here we're going to be starting on a downwind to landing on a left downwind at our traffic pattern altitude at our VYSE airspeed. The engine's already been feathered. We've already gone through our memorization checklist, and we're just going to go ahead and continue on with the landing. That being said, after we unpause the video and we continue on, we'll go ahead and put our landing gear down at like normal. We'll continue with our normal air speeds for the approach and landing in this airplane. One thing that's going to be different is we are going to delay our flap extension until we know we're going to make the runway. We don't want to create so much drag that we are not going to make the runway safely. We don't want to get low and slow on final, because trying to climb or speed up on a single engine in a light twin aircraft is extremely difficult and it might not even be possible. So we're going to make sure we don't get low and slow. That way we're not going to be putting our flaps in immediately. We're going to delay that. And also, we don't need to fly a perfect traffic pattern around here because we are going to assume that we've already declared an emergency. So if you need to kind of circle it around to come in and land, whatever you got to do to get it down nice and safe on the runway, we're going to do basically a normal traffic pattern. But again, in real life, if you had declared an emergency, if you need to cut the corners of the traffic pattern, you can go ahead and do that. So we'll cover the rest of the airplane. Let's head out and show you how to land this aircraft with a dead engine. Alright, welcome out to our airplane, where we are going to continue with this engine failure landing maneuver. Now, we've already gone through everything. Okay, we had the engine failure on takeoff. We went through the whole thing, maintaining direction control, pitch attitude, airspeed, mixture prop, throttle forward, the whole memorization checklist. We went through the fix or feather checklist. We decided to feather the inoperative engine. We are now turned on a downwind for our landing runway, and we're going to fly this around with our left engine failed. Now, if you look closely, you can actually see that our left propeller is still spinning. That's just because of the animation on the flight simulator. Even though we've got it feathered, the external airflow is keeping that propeller spinning probably faster than it would be in real life. Once we land, you'll see that that propeller completely stops spinning, even while the right one continues to. So it is done. We have accomplished everything up to this point. We've got our heading. We are almost to our traffic pattern altitude. We're still climbing. We're a little bit above our VYSE speed, but we'll go ahead and fix that after we unpause the flight simulator. Show you we've got our flaps and our gear up, everything like we should have. We've got our left engine master switch off. We still have our right engine obviously running, but that left engine's off. We've got our fuel shut off for our left engine down here as well. So everything is good to go to continue. We're just going to go fly this traffic pattern mostly like normal. Might delay putting in the flaps, but that is about it. So I'm going to unpause it, and again we are going to focus on maintaining directional control of the airplane, airspeed, and bringing this in for a nice safe landing. We don't want to get below our VYSC speed, but if we are holding our altitude, our traffic pattern altitude nicely, then we can be above our VYSC speed. We just don't want to get slower than our VYSC. So here's our 5,500 feet, and we are continuing. We've already declared our emergency with ATC, so we're looking out the runway. We're on a nice little downwind right here. Awesome. Again, since we've declared an emergency, we don't need to fly this like a normal traffic pattern. Like, we don't need to do turns. We can just circle around if we need to. We'll try to keep it as close to normal as possible for this example here today. But again, in real life, the focus is to get the airplane down nice and safely with this failed engine. So we're looking, okay, we're a BMR point. Always a BMR point. I still like to put the landing gear down, even though we might wait on the flaps, just so that we don't forget to put the landing gear down later. So go ahead and double check. Landing gear is down, 3 green. We can go ahead and bring maybe just a little bit of power back, since we're still holding our altitude pretty good. And we'll trim for a nice stabilized descent. Looking back for our runway and whatnot. Don't want to get too far from the runway. Don't want to get too low. Just want to make everything nice and easy and controlled. And again, I'm delaying my flap extension, and I'm trying to even come in a little bit high here, because I don't want to get low and slow on just a single engine. My airplane will probably, especially these light twins, will probably not have enough power to climb back up to a nice safe glide path. Alright, so I don't want to get low and slow. I'm going to stay a little high. I'm delaying my flap extension until I know that I'm going to be safe with this, with my altitude and my distance to the runway here. I'm thinking I'm going to be plenty good, but we're going to come out and see. Alright, circling around. We got an eye on our runway now. It's a little bit harder to see on the sim, but we do have our eye on the runway. We got 4-way. I'm feeling pretty good. Let's see, I'm feeling pretty good about our altitude here. I might even wait just a second longer. Let's go ahead and extend our flaps. We got 1 white, 3 red. Now the other thing that you're going to want to notice as you're coming into land here is that as you start to reduce this throttle, you're going to have to readjust with your rudders, right? Because right now you've probably got some right rudder in, maintaining your heading and everything. Okay, our speed's looking good, everything's looking good. I'm feeling comfortable with it. We got a good little glide path coming in now. We're definitely going to make the runway. So as I smoothly start to bring this throttle back to idle, nice and easy, get down into just our normal landing. Again, we just did it with 1 notch flaps, kind of kick it in the rudder here, using our rudders nice and easy, get it back over to center line, where we can then go ahead and use our brakes again. You'll notice the rudders are a little bit more finicky because we do have a completely dead engine on one side and just an idling engine on the other. Now, as I promised before we close out the video, here's our completely dead engine. See, it's not spinning at all. It's not at idle. It is completely dead and feathered, and over here we're still spinning. So that is it, guys. Again, it was basically a normal landing, except we kind of hooked around on the base to final and everything like that. We put our gear down at the same time, you know, did our gum check, gas undercarriage, mixed prop, seat belts, everything like that. But with the flaps, we did not extend the flaps until we knew that we were going to make it, and at that point we still only put in 1 notch of flaps instead of the normal for landing, because we didn't want to have too much drag that we were not going to make the runway safely. So that's it for this lesson. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one coming up soon.